Hi, I'm here with Rosemary Tantra Bensko, who's a writers.com instructor, especially in short story writing and then in some other areas. Hey, Rosemary, how are you doing?
Hi there, how are you?
Good, good to see you. And today we're going to talk about a really, I think, very exciting subject that just came out of a passion of yours, and that's the topic of embodied writing, or the way that the body um, and writing can interact. And I really can't wait to learn more. I guess my first question is, how did you get interested in this relationship between writing and the body?
I got interested when I was reading the new reports that came out about being sedentary, is sort of the new smoking, as they say. And they knew that being sedentary was bad, but people seem to think that you could be sedentary writing a novel for 8 hours and then go to the gym, play tennis, go dancing, all those kind of things that I love to do. But I realized that even if I did those things, according to these studies, it didn't actually make much difference because you have to get up regularly. They recommend every half hour during any kind of sedentary period. And so if you do that, then your body can be healthy. And so I like to try to be as healthy as I can. So I implemented that. But, I'm really quite busy. So I'm writing novels and teaching and editing manuscripts and magazines and all this stuff. And I just wanted to use that time productively, that while I would get up and pace around and move. So I figured I would combine the two and train myself to learn how to compose and generate ideas through movement. And then it worked great, and it tremendously helped my writing process.
So, what were a first of those few ways, or the main ways that you use now, where there is that interaction between bodily movement and working through a piece that you're writing?
I really like to work on the composition of it with movement. So, I don't necessarily know what book I'm going to write. I may have some seed ideas. And so rather than just sitting in this static position with my hands on the keyboards trying to think like a machine, this disembodied brain, and like thinking from an inflexible position. I wanted to think from a flexible movement position where I could use the wisdom of all of my body. And so I would think about what do I want to write? How do I want to affect the readers? What kind of arc do I want it to be? A gothic novel that has a positive ending, or a gothic novel that has a negative ending? And I would act it out, and I would find out through movement, through acting out the arc and the emotions I wanted to have the readers feel, like that's what I want to write. Whereas if I just tried to feel out what I wanted to do otherwise, I wouldn't have had as much body wisdom to draw on. And so I like figuring out just the basic ideas. And then I like figuring out little bits within each scene. So, like how do I want this character to behave? What's this character's inner personality? And so if I just, pretend to be that character and go walking around the room in that character's way of walking, talking like that character, the expressions and the gestures and everything, I get a much better sense of what that character is like. And so the character doesn't talk like other people. When I describe the character's gestures and movements and stuff, it's very specific and real to me because I've acted it out. So I feel like I'm embodying each character better, and I know what they feel like inside. So, if they're tensing up muscles, then as I'm acting them out, then when I'm writing about them, they're going to be tensing up those muscles. And I may not have known it until I acted them out. And I like to direct like a symphony conductor, direct the flow of a book, and or a short story, or memoir, whatever I'm writing. And I used to get up and pace regularly, and then my upstairs neighbor got kind of upset because I'd be just the same exact motion and he could hear it like, ah. So like it's very easy to think while pacing. But I realized, okay, I got to be nice to him. So I started just moving in these really erratic ways. You know, I'm like all around the floor. It's really hard to think that way. And so I did find though that it would um, change my thought process. So if I was stuck in something, moving erratically, breathing erratically, too, would sort of push me into a new perspective. And then I would vocalize and try to find, you know, my own voice, my characters' voices, the voice of the narrator, and just let my voice tell me what I wanted to say. Like, what, not just how I say it, which is a main part of the voice, but what is my message, and just let it come out spontaneously from the vocal cords without thinking about it. All those different types of things, I like to use them all. And I find it, like, if I don't worry anymore about whether or not I'm going to be able to come up with an idea, because I know that if I move, I'm going to come up with an idea.
It seems that seems like such a like the first I heard you talk about this, I was like, that is such a good idea. And yet I've never tried anything like it. And I'm not even sure I've heard of anything like that before. Why do you think this feels like waking up and somebody just invented something like the wheel or something like, oh wow, this I'll bet this could be used for a lot of things. Why do you think I've never done that or heard of it?
I had never heard of it either. I never knew of anybody doing anything like that. Um, I read one article by a woman named Susan Nordmark that I came across, and I actually know her. So that was kind of cool. She's a local writer. She had not suggested doing any of these kind of things, but it was about writing in the body and, you know, the relationship. And so I knew at least one other person had thought something like that. But otherwise, I just hadn't come across anything. And I think one reason is because most likely that's how people used to do it until computers, you know, cramped writing in books and manuscripts. But can you hear me okay with that noise out there? Sorry. So the storytellers, though, you know, I think they probably incorporated movement as, if nothing else, to help them remember what they were doing. So like same way they would rhyme, you know, they would maybe use rhyming movements in their body to help remember what they were telling. And so I think now we've just become so cramped in our movements of writing that we just forgot that we even have a body when we're writing. And so we write from our mind, and we're trying to write these stories with full-bodied characters and action that's really vivid and scenes that you can immerse yourself in, but we're trying to do this amazing thing from this really limited position. But when I go move around, I'll look really closely at what's around me. I'll remind myself, like, I'm not writing this abstract scene. I'm writing a very vivid visual scene with all the senses, and I'll slap my skin, I'll smell the air, you know, I'll touch something warm, I'll just get all my senses revitalized so I can then put them in the story.
You touched on it, but what has, first of all, when you read that article about, you know, sedentary lifestyles, when was that? How recently?
That was, I think 5 years ago. I think it was Dr. McCullough that first came out with, you know, popularizing that. And now it's kind of become something that a lot of people are aware of. So they're trying to do standing desks, any kind of thing they can do so they're not stuck in that sedentary position.
And so in that 5 years, you mentioned the ways that you've used embodied writing. What has it taught you as a writer?
Oh man, I feel like I became a much better writer. It's easier to get the ideas, but it's also, I feel like I really inhabit the characters more fully. And so sometimes I would just act out an action scene. So I might be rolling around on the floor And then I realized, like, oh yeah, if I'm in an action scene where people are rolling around on the floor, the characters are gonna be feeling the grit of the floor on their skin, and some of it's gonna stick there and leave an indentation, like those little details that I might not have thought of otherwise. And so I feel like it made my work more granular, and people comment on that, my writing being extremely granular, like really very detailed, with the settings and everything, not overly descriptive and flowery or anything, but like embodied, I guess.
I guess I'm curious, as a fairly talking head type person, which is kind of true. I mean, I sit in one place for a lot of most of my days. Um, do you have any advice for folks who maybe can see how incredible this would be, but are a little more bound up in their bodies, or a little bit less trained in like rolling around their floor, and not worried somebody's watching?
Right. Yeah. Some people, even if nobody's watching, they can be afraid of expressing themselves. And so I think just doing it like the tiniest little nuanced motions to just kind of get used to it. If you just jump out and start leaping about, you make it feel really stupid. But if just like move your hands a little bit, it's like, what's the wisdom within your hands? I feel like when I'm typing, a lot of my thinking happens through my arms. So like if I try to record something with my voice, I don't think the same way, and I can't write a novel trying to record it with my voice, trying to dictate it, because my arms are part of my thinking process. So if they only just start with the arms, just loosen up the arms and make them a little more flexible so the thoughts can flow through them more easily, that's a good place to start, I would say.
What else, just if any other quick tips come to mind for that writers can try just to work in a more embodied way, what comes to mind?
Well, some people, of course, are not going to have the physical capacity to get up. Some people are working from wheelchairs, for example. And so even just looking with your eyes in different directions, look around the edges of the room, good eye exercises for strengthening your muscles, but it also reminds yourself who you are, where you are, and that your characters are somewhere. And because so often I'll read all this dialogue where it's just totally bare. You don't see any expressions. You don't know where they are in space, where they are in relationship to each other, and all that stuff. So even just using the eyes is really helpful to bring it back into the physicality.
Are there any body practices that you have found that you can tell you're drawing on when you do embodied writing in the ways that you do it?
Well, I love to dance, and so I know just feeling comfortable with dance is helpful for me. And I also studied various things, somatic work to help people um, with lymph flow and things like that. So the awareness of the body as each muscle being important to your emotions is important, I think, because I would use kinesiology, applied kinesiology, to test each muscle in the body. And some muscles would be weak. And then I would work on that person using lymph massage, neurovascular holding points, things like that, and work with them through that to release some emotional blockage, and then test the muscle again. And this is called Touch for Health, is this practice. I was certified in that. And then the muscle will be strong. And so this practice that I'm talking about with the writing, I think it can do sort of the same thing. Maybe you're not working on lymph flow, with these particular spots, but you're still getting the lymph flow and you're still activating the emotions that we can trap in these muscles. And I really like just this thing that I call lucid play, which is something I used to teach, where I would take people into Tantra yoga exercises in a group, and that takes you in a really deep meditative state. And then I would get people moving in this state, keeping their eyes closed, but trying to stay in it, even though they were moving. And then they would open their eyes, try to connect with each other while staying in this state. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to do with this. I'm trying to go into this very proper state of using my body, because that kind of state, that's what your body loves. And so a lot of embodied writing that I've read about since creating the class can be yoga teachers using it. And they're using something similar to that, different from my lucid play, but it's a similar concept. So they'll use pranayama, breath work. And so some people use dance, some people use yoga and breath work, some people use therapy. Because just recently I realized there is this embodied writing field of study. And so I looked at everything that had been written and found that I completely aligned with everything anybody is doing with it, from whatever physical practice they're bringing to it.
Is there anything else that you'd like to, sorry. Is there anything else you'd like to share with anybody who has heard even just the phrase embodied writing, or the stuff you've shared about what it's done in your work as a writer, and would like to take the next step, would like to learn more? Is there anything else you'd like to share?
Well, if they're interested in taking the class, there's the first one and the second one, but you can really do them in any order or just do one, you know. And I would just say, don't be shy, because if you are shy by nature, that's fine. You know, there's no expectation that you have to be on a Zoom call or a Skype, you know, video or anything like that. You can do all your work on your own. Nobody has to see you acting weird. You can. I like to dress up in costumes with my characters, and so some of the videos are just goofy. You know, they're me and the characters. And so I think when people see me being goofy, they can just relax. You know, it's like it's not too serious, no big expectation. And at the same time, there's also the possibility of really bonding with the other people in the workshop, because you can bond just by doing the minimal work of uploading the fiction writing that you've done, or poetry or memoir, whatever genre the people are working with. But you also, if you want, you have the option of putting in, you know, a link to a video of you dancing around as one of your characters, or a picture of you, you know, having a big moment or whatever it is. And you can just talk directly to the other students and tell each other how your writing affects each other by paying attention to what it does in your body. So for me, when I think about what is it that makes me want to read this book, you know, I pay attention to what bodily changes am I looking for, and how do I feel when I'm reading it partway through, and how do I feel when I'm done, and how can I therefore create those bodily effects in the reader. And so I think it's really good just for learning how to read well and edit well and give response to other students based on how does your writing make my body feel.
I love that. Well, Rosemary, thank you so much. It's such a fascinating topic, and thank you for sharing with us.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.